Mode. Aha, there we go. Perfect. Okay. Well, oops. So, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us, Ghada, and thank you for everybody joining on the Zoom and everybody here in the room. Just for focusing everybody's attention, hopefully you know why you're here, but this is the Germinator. This is a weekly or bi-weekly meetup that I bring people I know or come across that I think would be interesting to hear about their story and what they've been up to in the context of anywhere from entrepreneurship, innovation, commercialization, whether in a new formed company or existing company. It's all part of the discussion and it's all really exciting for me. And really the main message is, as a Germinator, is a place to germinate on ideas. So this is not an entrepreneurship course, it's not a commercialization course. You don't have to walk out the door and start building stuff. It's a place for you to just give yourself space to think about ideas that you think are interesting and see what would be the next thing that you want to do with them in the future, or maybe not. So since some of the people here are joining us remotely and some are on here on campus, again, kind of focusing our attention to the fact that we are on Syilx Okanagan territory. It is ancestral, traditional, unceded of the Syilx people from time immemorial, and it's really grateful to be here. We can't see the view from here, but this is what it looks like on the slide when you go up a few hills not far from here. I took this in the summer when I went hiking with my family at the outskirts of Kelowna. For today, I guess quick acknowledgement, beginning this year, I'm really grateful for HCBC for funding to help enable us to do this on an ongoing basis. We're bringing speakers from all over and also giving us some refreshments along the way. And finally, our esteemed guest. So Dr. Ghada Nafie, I asked her to come because she founded a company and I thought it would be super exciting. But when she shared me her bio, I was completely floored. I trimmed it down because it was way more than what I put it here, but really just to highlight PhD from University of Calgary in chemical and petroleum engineering. She has lots of experience working with big companies and startups, research interest in lithium batteries, which is where we get into the Litus Inc., the latest startup company that she's leading right now. And there's a slew of all these awards that I think that was one of the reasons why your name popped up on my radar, because I started seeing all these awards from places I follow. So super amazing, super exciting, and I'll stop talking because we're here to hear you, not me. With that, I'm gonna stop sharing, and we can just focus on you. And again, just to kind of give people context, really the idea is to have this as a conversation. So feel free to ask questions as they come, anything that piques your interest. So without any further ado, Ghada, how are you? And what led you to our doorsteps?
Well, first, I'd like to thank you very much and everyone else that showed up today. It's such a pleasure to be here with you and to share my story and how Litus has come about. I'll start talking about my personal story a little bit. I graduated very many years ago from the University of Calgary. My undergraduate studies was focused on chemical engineering, and I ended up working just like any other engineer at the time in the oil and gas industry. And I've done that for a number of years. And when I graduated, I said, I want to do my graduate studies. I want to study something. I want to have impact. And I was super young. I was excited about starting something. I started my very first company when I was in university. It has nothing to do with what I was studying, but I wanted to create something and test how that would feel like. Am I going to like it or not like it? What does it entail? And I was so excited at the time. I created a company for building websites, and I knew how to do that. I was good, and I did all the graphics for it. I put it out. I was a student, and I'm like, you know what? I have another source of income, and that worked. And before I even get into graduate studies, I said, I want to understand the world around me. I want to know what's happening out there. I need to first work in the industry, get some experience before coming back to the university to study a specific topic, because I didn't know much. I'm graduating and, we focus on all the technical courses and all those fundamentals, but then what does that mean in the bigger world around us? What is the impact? So as engineers, we're focused on how do we solve problems? We're problem solvers. We use all of the analytical skills that we develop to solve some of the problems around us. And if I don't know what the problems are, how can I research a certain topic? And my goal was never to push the academic envelope, to say, okay, I'm just increasing what the knowledge in the world around us is. It was more, what can I do to change something around us, something that was impactful and big? And true enough, I went out to the out of the university. Sorry, excuse me. And I worked for about 5 years, when I very quickly came back and I said, I found it. I'm going to focus on wastewater treatment. This is my passion. And at the time, I remember going out to the fields and looking at these big oil and gas plants and looking at all the produced water that was coming out of them. It was huge. Sorry, if you don't mind me 1 second. I've been talking all morning. It was huge. I stood one time in front of a tailing pond, and all I can see are those huge pipes. They're producing that water. And I look up, and however far my sight could get me, it was wastewater just sitting there in those big ponds. And I said, this is what I want to focus on. I want to support the industry that I work for, and I want to support them have operations that are more sustainable, something that gains acceptance to the oil and gas industry all around the world. So I went back to the university at that point, and I started working on wastewater treatment, and I got a lot of knowledge. And at the time, before I was even done my studies, I got a really exciting contract and position with one of the companies that I couldn't resist. So I took some years off of my program and I went back to the industry, except I didn't come back anytime soon. I spent another 10 years before coming to the university. And I've done a lot of work at that time in different capacities. I was a process engineer, got into a project engineer. I became a project manager. I ran projects, I talked to people, and I really learned a lot of things. Now, the second time I came to the university after many years, I said, okay, I exactly know things. I understand it. I'm going to work on an impactful project. So the minute I got into the university, my mindset was not that I wanted a degree or I need to get a job or I need to get experience and exposure or gain more knowledge. It was, I want to develop something so unique that I can build a startup company after my studies. What is it that's important? And that's when you kind of shift gears from thinking about an area of study to an opportunity. What is it today that's a challenge and a problem that people would really be excited about if I develop a solution for? And that's exactly how I started. I started very, very different than other graduate students at the time. And I did a lot of studies. I went out and I talked to friends, colleagues, and companies, and I told them, what is it that I come today and tell you I have? You'd be very excited about it and tell me, yes, we're going to pay money. Because it's all about being able to commercialize something. I remember when I was doing startup training years ago, I remember this formula they put in it. It was at MIT, and they said, invention is innovation. Innovation is invention times commercialization. What that means is you can have a whole bunch of scientists come up with ideas, and unless they can commercialize, capitalize, and actually bring some revenue on these ideas that they have, then it's not an innovation. It's just an invention. And I was really looking for an innovative solution, something that I can build, invent, bring something new, and also be able to commercialize and bring some revenue out of that. And spent quite a number of years at the university where I developed expertise in nanotechnology. It was new, it was exciting. It seemed that it was able to do much more than any other technology compared to what they can do. So when you think about regular adsorbents versus nanotechnology or regular extraction or conventional methods, as opposed to what nanotechnology can offer, it seemed like it had a lot of advantages, and I became very excited about that area of study. I worked on it for quite a number of years, and I gained that expertise in being able to develop and design a material towards a specific application. And those applications could be anything that's related to energy and environment. And from there, I came across the opportunity of lithium. At the time when I started, lithium wasn't, it was still exciting, but it wasn't as cool as it is today, or as in demand, or as a critical strategic resource. Back then, my motivation towards the work was, again, my environmental background in wastewater. It was a big pushback in Chile, where they were pumping water out of the ground that let it evaporate by 50%. Think about that. It's a desert, very hot weather. Communities need that water, and they're evaporating it to extract lithium. And back then, it was all political. It was protests. It was, it's a protected land. Some of the UNESCO people got involved, and I said, you know what? There's a better way to do that. There must be a way to extract lithium without evaporating this water, without the large use of it, the land, all of the waste. And then I started looking, that's when I started looking in that direction. And I said, you know what, let's see how lithium is extracted and how it's processed from the minute it comes from a raw material until it gets into the battery. And all I can see was inefficient processes, wasteful stages, energy usage that's not required. And every step of the way, like I said, this can be improved. And I focused my PhD on lithium extraction. And the goal was to come up with a way that would really benefit the world in how it's done and benefit communities in these areas where it was a monopoly for quite a number of years, over 20 years, the lithium extraction in Latin America. And I got into this whole space and Litus, and finished my studies. And Litus was created as a spin-off company out of the University of Calgary. And one of the biggest things that I consider I was lucky with is the team I worked and collaborated with from the very beginning. And that's something that you really want to think about, is who can you work with? Who can be on your team? How do you really choose a startup team that can be very impactful? So it's the backgrounds, it's the expertise, it's the passion, the common goal. It's how you can all advance together. People tend to kind of join the same backgrounds and the same expertise. They say, well, I'm a chemical engineer. So you find 3 engineering students coming and telling me, we're going to start something. Well, they all exactly know the same knowledge, but you want to form a diverse team from a knowledge point of view and technical background, but also from different places, because you bring in a whole bunch of perspectives together, and the innovation side of things and how ideas are generated and people work on things becomes very differently. And sometimes you feel, well, but we know what we're thinking about. We know what we want. Well, you may know, but it's the crazy ideas that come all across the room where you're like, what are you talking about? That gets you thinking more broader and out of the box solutions than you would typically consider or evaluate or even go down a path. And that's what innovation is all about, or idea generation and brainstorming, when you sit with a team and you bring a whole bunch of ideas together and you're like, okay, what are the ideas? We need something new to solve this problem. And everyone comes with an idea, and it's about how you're thinking about those. So that's how kind of my story, how Litus started and how it came about. And I'm very excited to be working with everyone I am today to grow this technology and commercialize it.
Thank you. I know I have lots of follow-up questions, but I will I'll give the students in the room the opportunity. Anybody has any question? Naive, sophisticated, absolutely. Both are good.
Where did you meet most of the people who worked with via, I guess, the team for your original startup? Like, how did you know most of those people?
That's a great question. Thank you. So at the beginning, when I went back to the university and I said, I'm going to join a group to do my research, I went and talked to every single PI at the University of Calgary. And I saw what they were doing, and I saw what they were passionate about. And because I was looking for something that had real life application and commercial goals, I chose a group that was also focused on that. So right off the bat, we have the same vision. It was a group that was focused on impact, on developing technologies. They had a number of patents. They were looking to commercialize and grow, and not just build a lab technology. But that was not enough, because again, that goes back to my point of, we're all similar to the background, but I needed a little bit of diversity. So we brought into that team, we're chemical engineers, and then we brought into the team chemists, because we said, you know what, this process, we need someone who understands the chemistry to tell us all about it. So we brought that on board. And then we brought, so I was more on the process, and then we needed some scientists that would inform the whole process, and we brought that in. And then we stopped at saying, okay, well, we need someone to build a company. Right now, we're an excellent research group. We're all technical. We have the background, we have the expertise, but we need someone from the business side to build a company and to transform everything that we're doing from a research and an academic world to a real entity that can grow and be a real company. And even though I've done a lot of training, and people on the team has attended a lot of things, but we very soon after were joined by a fourth member who had that expertise, has built a number of companies, was focused on product development and commercialization. That was exactly what they've done, and they became part of our team. So it was all of looking at that diversity, different expertise, different experiences, but also concreteness among the knowledge. So what have they done? What do they know? What are they confident and would like to work in? And then we brought all of those pieces together. Does that answer your question?
You have a fellow? Oh, sorry. Okay. Anyone else? Not yet?
Yeah, I want to ask. Hello.
Oh, by the way, so just for the discussion point of view, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself a bit, just like say which program you're from, what's your sorry?
Finn, first year engineer.
First year engineer?
Yeah.
Do you have a program yet or not yet?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
Hi, I am Adip. I am a first year grad student and I am pursuing Masters of Civil Engineering. This is the one question I ask almost every entrepreneur I meet is, why did you decide to take the risk? I guess you had an established career 10 years down the line. You had a well mapped out career path, right? You went from an engineer to a project manager to handling multiple projects. Then why come back to the university, put at risk your career, and then give out maybe 4 or 5 years of your time, knowing that it wouldn't be successful? It would or would not be successful.
That's a great question. So let me tell you, people, I mean, to become an entrepreneur, it's a really very hard thing, but it's also a lifestyle. You really have to have a lot of motivation, a lot of passion, and they are different when we talk about motivation and passion. And you want to be willing to give a lot to become an entrepreneur. So it's a whole change of lifestyle, but it's one that I really understood very well before starting Litus. I wouldn't call myself a serial entrepreneur because I'm not, but I did have two other startups before Litus. Litus is my third company, and the others did actually really well. The first one, it was a company that services oil and gas companies. It was a service company, and it was focused on leak detection for environmental cleanup as well. And I learned a lot. It was my very first one. There were a lot of unknowns. I remember doing everything. I wore a lot of hats. I was up. I learned a lot from that experience. But we've reached a point in the company where part of it was acquired by Enbridge, and it ended up doing really well. And then the second one was a wastewater treatment company where kind of decided to pivot from that a little bit and get into the lithium space, and then switched over to Litus. But all of it is about the impact, right? So yes, I have a career. Yes, I can secure an income, but then what? I'm going to keep on growing, and then what? Become a manager, a boss, and then what? But I wanted to do something that was really impactful, that would make a difference in the world, that would satisfy me as an individual, saying, I'm doing this, I'm putting all the hard work, but you have no idea the satisfaction and the feeling when you have a theory and then you go in the lab and build something and it works. It's beyond what any job would give me. It's a different level of satisfaction and fulfillment. And it's something that I have been looking for, is to have that purpose, that practice, that feeling and impact was huge for me. And that's what got me into this again.
Yeah. Anybody online has a question? We have a few people online.
Yes, I am Nafsif Kaur. I'm fifth year civil engineering undergrad student. And one of the things I think about, I do feel like moving forward, I would want to go into, I don't know, build a company of my own. But during that process, or when I'm thinking about it, one thing pops up, and that's always the financial, so you have to make a company, and during the downtime or the starting time of it, you're not making any revenue, right?
Mhm.
So how much years do you think you need to have I don't know, like how much money do you think is a good backup to have before you fully engage yourself into that company or into building that product?
That's a really good question. And I would say there's not one answer to that because it depends on what you're doing, what you're building, your solution, your technology, how fast you're going to go in a team. What I would though say is you have to really think about taking a risk, but a bit of a calculated risk. So there are ways that you can reduce that financial risk so that you don't, as an individual, go out and start a company and end up losing everything. And those calculated risks could be along the lines of, well, I'm going to build a team where all of us are going to contribute, but I'm not going to dedicate my full time into this. I'm going to have something else on the side to secure me financially while I build this and kind of test whether it's feasible to reduce some of the assumptions and reduce and validate whether you really have something valuable and it will have traction and there's an opportunity that you're pursuing that's a need in the market or not. And that initial stage, I would say try to have maybe a backup so that it secures you to a certain limit. So you're taking a risk. Maybe it's not enough. Maybe you have to add. Maybe you have before that to have some savings to your point. But then it's not entirely, it's also not completely that I'm going to go and do this and, and then you end up being in a really very financial place and you can't validate. So for the first few steps, when you're still looking to reduce the risks and validate your assumptions and do all of those initial stages to know that you have something feasible and you can actually build and scale, you can do other things on the side to support you. And building a team that is able to also support with that at the beginning is very helpful.
I do have a follow-up question for the same thing. So at what point were you so sure about that you are going to be dedicating your time to this company and your team involved with you? And how did you validate your design or your ideas? Like, did you go to more professors or did you talk to industries or like, what was the process like?
Okay. That's an excellent question. Okay, I will actually take you back through to the process. So because I started with this as a research project, so I tried to talk to a lot of people and a lot of companies and understand where the world is while I was studying. But if you don't have that and you don't want to pursue that path, an alternate would be to go out and to actually do some really good research. Typically, when you're looking to develop something new, you want to start not from coming up with an idea and then trying to sell it. And that's a very engineering focused approach. And it was done many, many years ago. And what you want to do is you want to develop solutions that are customer focused solutions. And what that means is that you're going out looking for a problem that a group of people are having, and then you're developing a solution to serve that customer segment and fix this problem. So you start with the problem first, and then you introduce a solution, and then you identify what your market is or who are the people. And when you do that, then you want to start looking at everything else from a research point of view. Okay, this is the problem. What are the solutions that are out there? So you do a lot of research. You go out and almost every other company in the world that has not only a solution similar to yours, because that may not exist, but it could be an alternative. So you don't only want to think about who's doing this. Well, I'm introducing something new. No one else has it. So it's going to be very novel. Well, you want to think about also alternatives that people may resort to avoid that problem or to solve it in a different way. And you evaluate all of those and do a lot of research and know what's out there and try to understand if some of them are not growing or some of them have failed. Why have they failed? And the more research you do, the more information you're going to get. You're almost, you would be able to speak about what you have, but also you'll be able to say, okay, well, if this is what the companies before me failed in, they couldn't achieve or build a solution to solve those. Can I? Is your next question. Would I be able to? And why? Do you have the expertise? Do you have different talent, different skill set? Are you able to go out to a group that can support you develop this? So then you identify exactly what the problems in the market are. You see who else is working on it. So in terms of competition, and then you see what's unique about you. And this is an exercise where you're going to keep on doing again and again. Like our message as a company has changed drastically over the year based on everything else happening beside us. The one thing that we constantly do is we're on top of everyone in the world who's working with lithium. You ask me about any company, I exactly know what they're doing, where they're struggling, why they're failing, or where they're at. So that knowledge is very powerful. And that allows you to position yourself. That's where your unique advantage comes into play, your value proposition. This is why I'm the best person to provide a solution to this problem. And once you do that and you have the uniqueness, then you move into a little bit of, okay, do I have the right team and skill set to build the solution that I believe will be ideal? So you've identified it would be ideal. The world needs this solution to solve this problem. Now, can you do it? Is it you or is it someone else? Because it could be the right solution, but you may not be the right person to develop it. And once you can confirm that, yes, you can develop that solution and scale it, then you're already many steps ahead. And from that point, what you would want to do is create a list of all of the risks, all of the things that can go wrong. Because as you're making all these decisions and kind of looking into them, you're also making a lot of assumptions. You assume things. You assume that the market will have a certain trend. You assume that people will like that. You assume, so all of these assumptions, document them. And I know we had a very, very rigorous list of risks of assumptions, and all of them had priorities, had level, like, is it a high risk? Is it a low risk? And what do we do? And we're always on top of, okay, how are we going to mitigate? If that happens, what is our backup? So that you're not blind. If it happens, you're like, yeah, it's on our list. We thought something like that may happen, and we do have some idea of a way to pursue it. Not exactly and not in details, but at least you understand the risks you're getting into. You don't want to start getting into a market or a sector or develop something and find a huge barrier that's a roadblock. And you would find these things early on if you're doing all of that research. And one really good example about that is policy. Because some people get into sectors and try to develop something new, but for example, they need some health approval or some policy to support them implementing that. And then that would take years, or they may never get it. And it becomes a roadblock. They can't pass that. But if they have done research at the beginning, they would know that developing such a solution would require these regulations or permits or whatever, and they would have accounted for it. So that's why it's so important to do that early stage research and understand what's out there and understand exactly what you're getting into. And then documenting it as a process with the risks and validating them as you go and your assumptions on an ongoing basis, that is extremely powerful and reduces a lot your risk as a company and sets you up for a lot of success.
All right. Thank you so much.
And thank you for summarizing my entire entrepreneurship course in 5 minutes. So for those of you who don't know, there is a course, Technology Entrepreneurship, which is a grad course cross-listed as an undergrad 4th year, 400 level, and we go through the entire process in 12 weeks. Not to commercialize, but to validate the validated learning part. Any other questions? Or yeah, please.
Sorry. Hi, my name's Charlotte. I'm also first year engineering. I'm just wondering, what was your experience like creating relationships and positive relationships with peers and other companies that you were planning on working with in the future? Things such as that.
That is a very good question, and I'm always gonna tell you a story. I got into this space, and because I was so focused on impact, and it was the biggest thing, it's about how we have a positive impact in the world. I automatically assumed that every other person or every other company that was involved in lithium extraction had the same goal, impact. I was very quickly proven wrong. So when I started talking to competitors or trying to see a way that we can collaborate to create the best possible solution out there, that expectation was not very right, because the goals of each individual out of getting or becoming an entrepreneur is very different. So one of the things I would always advise people and everyone around me, if you're getting into this pathway and you decide to become an entrepreneur, define very early why you're doing this. Because the measure of success for each one is very different. My measure of success was impact and a little bit of money. And I know when I talk to my board of directors, for example, and I say that, they go like, no, you can't have two, you have to have one. And I'm like, but I really do have two. And they're combined and very integrated and they go together. But it's important to define that at the beginning, because that tells you whether you were successful or not. For example, and just to elaborate on that for a minute, if I come and I say at the very beginning, my goal is, I think it's so cool to be the CEO of a company. Just the title is so cool. I want people to look at me and I want to have that reputation. I'm a CEO. People talk to me and say that. Then once they create it and they become that, that's it. They're successful. They're done. Check, check. They became a CEO of a company. Someone else would come and say, okay, well, my goal is I don't want to have a boss. I don't want to wake up in the morning every day at 8 o'clock, go down and have a boss all day tell me what I do. I want to be my own boss and I want to work very freely at the hours that I please. So then when they get into becoming an entrepreneur, they do it because they like the career path. They want the experience. They want the path where they become their own boss. They do whatever they want. They want the flexibility. They like it. So it's a very different goal than someone else. Some people actually become entrepreneurs as their legacy. You'd have a family of entrepreneurs, all of them have created startup companies and they've been successful. And the expectation from when their kids are very young, 16, 17, where's your startup? What are you going to do? Did you decide what you're doing? And they get into it as a legacy. And some people, of course, it's different. There are so many different examples, but identifying early on why you're becoming one, and measuring that success later on to say, did I really achieve my goal or not, I would say is a starting point. So I didn't have that alignment with the people that were in the space or the ecosystem. And it's a crowded area because lithium is a very strategic resource. And there are a lot of companies that are trying to get government grants to build something to create a solution. So for me, it was a very early realization of, you know what, I'm not going to focus on telling. I'm going to focus on showing, because what matters is a solution that works. So I either spend my time going and collaborating and talking to people and trying to build those relationships, or I focus on building a product. And we're not a very big team. We're about 6 people in the company. So we try to really be very efficient in our time and how we're using these resources we have. So we've decided to go with a show, don't tell approach of just focusing very hard on our product and building a pilot unit that we can show the world. And we have built a mini pilot unit that actually extracts lithium today. And we're able to bring people in, and we're not going to say, we're building or developing the technology. We said, well, we've built this. Look, this is the lithium that comes out of it. And we can even run it in front of them in a pilot plant. So that is very powerful. And I would say that it is important to be part of the ecosystem. And one of the biggest things entrepreneurs would want to capitalize on is their very own personal connections, and to belong to a group where they can have mentors and support. It is huge because it's a path that's not all going to be positive. There's going to be a lot of I call them the down troughs, where you get into a phase of like, oh my God. And that support and mentorship around you, it becomes really helpful in passing those and kind of overcoming them. And with that, it's good to develop, but I would say focusing on your own developments, your own products, your own plans is key, and it should really be the focus.
Cool. Yeah, please.
Did that answer it? Yeah.
Oh, actually, sorry. I just want to kind of throw in a question to help students clarify a distinction. And thankfully, you had both experiences that I want you to kind of contrast for us. you said that your first company was when you're undergrad, creating websites, and
Yeah,
now
that was
you.
a very small one. I'm not counting that out of the three. That was just a small side hustle for me. Where I'm like, I'm going to create something.
But it's a creative process, and it was around solving a problem for people, right? Like doing something you can do for others in exchange for, hopefully money. I hope you didn't get just free pizza or something.
Yeah, no, it was money.
Yeah. But fast forward into the present with Litus and the lithium extraction, you've spent years of research and knowledge expertise building, and you're creating a new technology. That technology did not exist when you set out to do this. So the contrast to technology entrepreneurship that I'm teaching, we actually have another guest lecturer this term teaching a course called Tough Tech. And Tough Tech is really basically saying you're starting a company with a non-existing technology. I need to create this technology before I can build a business around it. And this is what you do. And Tough Tech versus not Tough Tech are very different trajectories, different timescales, different funding models, and require very different expertise. So I was hoping if you can give us a bit of a flavor of how you see this, your current Tough Tech world versus the experiences you had before. I don't know if the other two are good examples of non-Tough Tech, where you basically run a business, but you don't need to create the technology. It's basically just using existing technologies to provide a new service.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. That's a really interesting actually question, and I'm going to reflect on that a little bit. So when I created the first company as a side hustle at university, it was something that I very quickly knew how to build. And keep in mind, I'm super old, so that was like over 2 decades ago. It was in the 1900s, and websites were cool, and people wanted to build them. So I needed to very quickly gain expertise in a certain area, and revenue was very near. I knew that once I go and I market, I'm able to bring revenue quickly into whatever I was building or developing. So it's similar today, not exactly, but a little more similar to, for example, building an app or running a digital entity online. Whereas technology, it's a very different path. So I came across an opportunity, and if I go back to the name of this session, the Germinator, it took about 5 years to actually come up or germinate until it was at a point where I can have a spin-off company. I knew all along I was going to have a company, but I didn't start in the second, third, or fourth year. I needed to already know that I have a solution and that it's going to be something good or big, and I can build on it before I spin off a company. And I'm going to expand, and it seems like a tangent, but I think it's a very important point. When you build a technology and you go out of the market to support it, what you're looking at is you're looking to bring some investments or money in. Yes, there are grants, and they're great and everything, but grants have their own risks as well. But let's talk about just going out and raising capital. To build your tech, or to build your tech company or your products, you need capital. To get that capital, you go out to investors and you raise money. For people to give you their hard-earned money, it's a big deal. It's a big thing, right? These people have worked so hard. It's the money, you're raising it. You have to be worthy of actually getting people's money to have a company and actually start raising. And I kind of delayed that until I was very sure that this was going to work and that it's reproducible. We've done it tons of times. We understand it. It's all going to work before I actually went down that path. So with tech, you need to almost either have full confidence and quite a lot of proofs of concepts and prototypes and things to validate and kind of give you that confidence that you'll be able to build something before you then start going into the path of raising and stuff. The one other thing is that with tech companies, revenue, like commercial revenue, is quite far down the path. So even though I'm building this today and it's working and I have a technology, I'm still quite a number of years from being able to get some revenue from commercial applications. I still have to go through, in my case, it's a process, right? So you build it lab scale, and then once that's all good, you scale it up to a bench. From a bench, you scale it to a pilot. Once you have a pilot, you have a field demonstration unit. And after you have the field demonstration unit, you then go into a commercial unit, and then you start getting revenue. That cycle takes anywhere between 3 to 5 years before you see the first maybe commercial revenue. And this is all something that you have to plan for. Okay, how am I as a company going to bring some revenue in? Do we want it all to be investment? Is it going to be a combination of things? I'll tell you that in our case and for Litus, we've decided to have sources of revenue. So we've opened up pathways for us to bring customer revenue, which is the best kind of revenue anyone can get into a company. It's non-dilutive. That means your stake at the company or your shares don't decrease, and you can bring many of them. And it gives you validation because now you're working with customers. And that's exactly what we did. We said, you know what, we're going to have small projects with customers. It will allow us to exactly understand what they're looking for. And it will allow us to customize the solution and our product to exactly what's needed based on the input from the customer. And it will also bring us the revenue to carry us on until that commercial stage. Ellen, did that kind of answer your question?
Yeah. And from a terminology point of view, that's what we call bootstrapping. So if anybody tells you they're bootstrapping their way, that's really what it looks like. It means you develop your business, but you get sources of revenue related to that business. So bootstrapping is, and again, this is kind of putting a distinction between your web hustle, right, as a side hustle.
Yeah.
The side hustle was decoupled from the other part of your life, whereas in bootstrap, you're really making sure that you're getting small chunks of revenue that are very tied to the business you're developing, exactly like Ghada said. You get early customers, you get their feedback, they're part of the process, and it just makes it, I guess, de-risking the whole 10-year, long-term investment.
Yeah, and just so that you have the right view about Litus, we're not entirely bootstrapping, just to put that out there. We have gone through an approach of a combined one where we're raising capital and we're getting investments, but we're also bringing this. So and we're going to grants. So we kind of did a very combined approach. So
yeah, and if you would have told me you're able to create new technology in a pilot plant just by bootstrapping, I would have come knocking on your door.
Yeah. The good thing about the team that all of us got into this, and we were willing to personally invest time, effort, and resources in the company. So for the first little while, while we were developing, it was all based on our co-founders' contribution towards the development of the company and technology.
Yeah, perfect. Any other questions? Any thoughts? Yeah, please.
Hi, Raylene, and I'm in my first year of engineering. I guess this is kind of like going a little bit back, but just could you give some advice or like guidance to like a first year, like how you can develop your passion or like to see what kind of like route you want to take? Like, did you always know you wanted to be a chemical engineer? And then how did you know that you were interested in the nanotechnology and going forward, like each step of the way?
That's an interesting question, and I don't know if I was a good example because I absolutely hated chemistry. And I remember when I got into engineering, everyone suggested to me chemical, and I said, absolutely not. I'm not going into chemical. And at the very beginning, I got into engineering with different goals and different plans. And I actually had a summer job just before I got into engineering in a different discipline, thinking that I would end up there. And after taking my first year courses, it was really my opportunity to test all of these first year courses and see what I was passionate about. What is it that I liked and didn't like? When you really choose a major, which is a huge thing in your life, you want to make sure that you really like and enjoy what you're doing. You don't want to wake up in the morning feeling like, oh my God, I'm doing this again. And I don't like that. I don't want to be in it, or this is not what I'd like to do every day. So that first year engineering, and I believe it's the same at UBC, it's a common core where you're getting courses from everywhere. And it's your opportunity to really test what you like. Do I like programming? Do I like, processes? Do I like, what is it that you like? Do you like fluids? Do you like circuits? And based on that and your experience with those first year courses and labs and everything else, then you can make a decision, okay, this is really what I like. But I would say it needs to be what you like with a little bit of balance of the market, of the outer market. So I know I have, for example, students that would come in first year and say, well, we're having a little bit of a struggle. Do we do this? Do we do that? Which one is better? And my first answer is, did you go online to look at the jobs for each sector? Like, what would you get? How would your job look like if you were, for example, a chemical engineer versus an electrical? And then I would really advise people to go and pull those jobs, because when they give you the job, they give you the description, the activities, what you're going to be doing. And then you would read this and say, well, which one do I like more? If I had the option to do this and this, which one am I more passionate? Would I enjoy it if I'm doing these duties and responsibilities or these ones? Which activities am I more leaning towards? And then that's another way to kind of see what you like, with exactly what to expect in the market as well, early on in your first and early years.
Thank you.
I think you had another half to the question. Did that answer everything, or you had a bit more into? Oh, I think the other part was you wanted to be an entrepreneur, and for me, I did, because I was always, my focus was not to just get an education and work and be done. I have always been looking at positive impact, and initially it was a bit more of I always wanted to create something of my own that had the impact. But also I have to say that when I worked in company, you can still create that positive impact, because I've had a number of years where I've worked at companies and really tried to have innovative ideas and developments within my positions in these places. And that was also really exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if I'm hearing your response correctly, is it safe to say that not only did you want to create impact, but you wanted to own that impact?
Yes. And that gets us a little bit to the differences between entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship, if you guys are familiar with the term. So the difference between them, both of them are kind of have combined skills, where you're innovative, you come up with ideas, a lot of the skills are the same. The difference is, one, you have your own entity, so then or startup, so then you can think about the risk you're taking, because it's a really big, both personal and financial risk. But then the reward all comes to you. So you're taking the risk, but when that succeeds, you're also getting the reward. If you reduce that risk and you say, okay, I'm going to secure myself financially, you know what, I'm just going to go work in a company, I'm going to have the salary at the end of the month, I'm reducing those risks, and I'm not putting a lot of them. But then when the reward comes, it doesn't come to you, but it then comes to the company. I mean, some of it may end up coming to you, but not the same way.
I'm gonna push back on that last comment and say that even if you don't succeed, you still reap the benefits. And I'm hoping that one of our future guests, I'm trying to get him to join us in a future guest session, made a really amazing observation that if you were the co-founder or CTO of a failed startup for 4 or 5 years, you are way more hireable than somebody who was just getting a job.
And I would, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And so even if the startup essentially is a failure and you close shop and you say, well, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to get a job. You're still better off in the long run, because you're still hireable, you're desirable, and you have something to show for in that respect.
Absolutely, and that's 100% stand behind that. So when I talked about the reward and not, it's whether you're working in a company or not, and I'm talking about the financial reward. So
Yes.
If you exit from a company, you're getting the financial reward. But if you talk about the value, I would say, I personally always say, no startup ever fails. Like, just to say a startup failed, that just doesn't exist. People run either out of money or time. They didn't do it on time, or their runway with the amount of money that they secured was not enough. So they run out of one of them. So I wouldn't really refer to a failed startup. I would say that they tried the development, it just didn't continue.
Yeah.
But I 100% stand behind what you're saying. Absolutely. Just doing all of these things and being in the path, the amount of things that you would learn is just tremendous. And I would say it's irreplaceable. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we're getting close to the hour. So anybody has any last question that you want to ask them? Anybody online in the Zoom call? We still have a few more people there. This is where somebody needs to create a cricket sound maker. Well, Ghada, really, really thank you. It was such a pleasure to have you with us for this lunch hour. I know it's past your lunch in Calgary, so you're ahead of us. And best of luck with your current venture. And I know we're going to meet in June for the Engineering Education Conference here. Hopefully we get to work more on other things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to be here with you today. And and I'm happy if anyone has any follow-up or would like to ask any questions, I'm sure you can get to me through Alan. And again, thanks for having me today.
No, if they want to find you, they have to find you themselves. You have to do the work. That's my ground rule. You need to find your connection. You know her name. Yeah. She's on LinkedIn. There you go. Okay. Well, have a great rest of your afternoon, and stay well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been lovely. Thanks, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.